Welcome to Work the Left Side. I am joined this week by Iestyn Rees. Dude, actually honoured to talk to you, mate. You've, we were talking before I hit record. We'll get into it, during the episode. But it's a who's who of ring time. So how are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm not too bad. Been a pretty hectic couple of weeks with moving house and stuff. For anyone that's moved house, you know how stressful it is. For anyone that hasn't, when you come to move house, everything takes twice as long and is 10 times as hard as you imagine. So yeah, just getting back to sort of normal routine and stuff now. The house is pretty much unpacked. So yeah, and I got back wrestling this past weekend. So yeah, getting back to normality basically.
Dude, I moved in August and I've still got a room just full of boxes.
Yeah, that's what our garage looks like at the moment. Just looks like Del Boy and Rodney's lockup at the moment. So
nice. Yeah, it's the thing is though, you've got to be careful, man. Out of sight, out of mind. It's very easy just to be like, unless you need something, you forget about them.
That's it. Yeah, no, we've got a bit of a plan. So Saturday morning, start trying to get the last little bit sort of sorted, and then sort out the garage because a lot of the stuff's staying in the garage, but it's just all piled on top of one another at the moment. So yeah, we've got to just get things sorted and go from there, basically.
The joys. But we'll talk about the fun stuff. We'll talk about wrestling.
Sure.
As again before I hit record, obviously just talking to you. You sort of say you start training in 2005. Official debut was 2006 for 4FW.
Yeah.
Generic question. I'll get it asked. What made you take them steps through the training door? What made you think, I want to do this?
So going back, like obviously. Started watching wrestling when I was about 6 years old. My cousin used to have Sky. He used to record like the superstars, and then he lent me the video of WrestleMania 7 with Warrior Savage and Hogan Slaughter, and that kind of got me hooked and stuff like that. And then he used to, every 3 months I'd sort of see him. He'd give me a couple of videotapes, and then we didn't see as much as happens as you get a bit older and you start playing sports at the weekend and stuff like that, because he lived about 50 miles away. So kind of just didn't sort of hit. You'd hear about wrestling now and then, but it was like, oh, I really liked it, but I've got no way to see it. And then the Royal Rumble 2000 was obviously on Channel 4, and that like piqued my interest back again as a 16-year-old. So kind of picked up on it from then. Still didn't have the, when Channel 4 lost the programming, obviously didn't have Sky or whatever, but carried on sort of following it. And then I was at uni and I'd seen a bit on cable TV with the wrestling channel and seen there were sort of schools up and down the country. And I was playing basketball to a decent standard. I was playing for the Manchester under-20s and Division 3 men's side. So basketball was like the main thing. And then when I finished uni, came home, there was no real basketball around here anymore, especially at the men's sort of stuff. So I was looking for something to fill my time. Thought, I'll just do a search and see if there's any wrestling schools. And I saw there was 4FW school in Swindon, so I went along in June or July 2005, and the rest is history basically. Yeah, so trained, had a couple of matches under a mask in October, November, December, and then made my full debut in 2006.
Wow. Obviously, after looking at through the matches, and just some of the names, like you had Shaw Samuel, Martin Stone very early on. The first 12 months.
I was very lucky. Like my first match was a tag team match, me and Luke Phoenix versus the Cartel, Shaw Samuels and Terry Fraser. I didn't get that much involved, so they just beat me up as I came through the curtain, and then got involved right at the end. But no, I was pretty lucky. Obviously, being the size that I am, and I was a decent athlete when I was a kid and stuff like that. I took to wrestling fairly well, so it meant that I was put in sort of prominent matches. Shaw, Dave Mastiff, Martin Stone early on, because they were, the top sort of heavyweights of that time, and it just allowed me to sort of progress, and they they're working them at an early stage really sort of helped me get better, really.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, yeah, it only helps you by working with guys at the top of their game. That just automatically levels you up, kind of thing, I would presume. Get better quicker.
Yeah, they were, had some harsh criticisms and stuff like that, but constructive criticism, and you just, when you're keen to improve, you just take the criticisms on board, work on the points, and you try and improve. And then next time when they see you or work you, then you're hopeful that they say, oh, you got better at that bit and that bit. We still need to work on X, Y, and Z. And I just took it like I've taken everything since I played sports since I was 6 years old. If someone that's either coaching you or better than you, you try and do what they're telling you to the best of your ability, basically.
Yeah, that's it. I think it's good attitude. I just sort of said, they're telling you, take it on board, use it, get better, and then they won't tell you again because it's all good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, yeah, you sort of say, size-wise, you still stand out to this day, within British wrestling because you are. I mean, there's big guys, and then there's like just guys that look like professional wrestlers. No offense to other people, but you're a big guy. There's like you, there's Sticks, there's a few other people, that just absolutely freaking shreddy. You just jacks me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky. I'm shrinking now because I'm getting old. But yeah, about 6'3", bit taller on my ring boots. I walk around these days 17 and a half, 18 stone. So, and it's something I've always prided myself on. I grew up watching the what's called the golden age of WWF, with Hogan, Warrior, Legion of Doom, and all the roster. And so that's what I thought that a wrestler needed to look like. And being big anyway, and I've always loved the gym even before I got into wrestling. But I was about 14 stone when I started wrestling, and I, over the years, put on a bit more size, and it's helped me be marketable, definitely, and unique compared to other people and stuff like that. And it's alongside my wrestling ability, however people rate that, the physique has definitely opened doors that potentially wouldn't have been there if I didn't look like the way I looked.
That's it. I mean, it's just common sense. You got a dude that looks like you, or the guys that I mentioned. You put them on a wrestling poster, it gets eyes. It gets people's attention like that.
And that's what I've always, that's what I've always said to people. I said, I might not be a name, but you put me on a poster, and I'm going to catch people's eyes. I'm going to, and it's as much, when you're not appealing to die-hard wrestling fans, you're appealing to families and kids. They see a bloke who looks like a bodybuilder, big muscly guy. They can be, oh man, yeah, it's like on the TV or whatever. And that's because if you're trying to appeal to a family audience, it ain't the kids you got to convince. It's the mums and the dads, because they've got to spend the money. They've got to be there for the show, even if they don't like wrestling. Because it's what you do with the kids and stuff like that. So there's got to be a draw to get them in, and that's when I've been at WWE tryouts and stuff like that. Mr. Regal said, the fans on the floor seats, they'll always be there. That 2,000 people will always be there. They're diehard wrestling fans. To 15,000 in the tiered seats, that's who you've got to cater to, because that's where the money's made. That's you fill a 15,000 seat arena with 2,000 people on the floor seats. Not many chances you're going to be coming back and doing that. But you get 17,000 in there, and it's the dads and the mums that don't really watch wrestling, but they can be entertained or impressed by what people are doing or how people look. That's the business right there and then. And it's the same on the independent thing. You'll always get 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 fans. But if you want to be successful and have 4, 5, 6,000, 4, 5, 600,000 people, you've got to appeal to the mass market. And that's where I feel that myself and the guys that you've mentioned have a real advantage and are able to do that.
That's it. It's just good business sense. I mean, you get eyes on the prize. You get people through the doors. They're impressed. They come back.
Exactly. And as long as the standard of wrestling is good on the show, they're not going to expect everyone to be 6'3", 6'4", 18 stone, because that's just not feasible. I've always said that a wrestling roster should be like a rugby team. You're going to have big, strong, thick guys, thin, athletic, whip it, type guys that can do the flips and stuff like that, and everyone in between, and that's where I think that, you got to go in and look for some variety in your roster as well.
Yeah, no, I definitely fully agree. And I think, just to sidebar a little bit, that's maybe where, like, I don't know, AEW struggled to start off with, because they were just all the quick. There wasn't any really big guys there when they first started. So the variety didn't stand out as much. Whereas in WWE, they catered more for the bigger guys, and there weren't as many of the smaller guys at one point. It's just about getting that mix.
If you look at the WWE roster now, and I think as a whole, you've got it's not just the land of the giants. It's not just the small indie type workers. They've got a range of all different types of body shapes, all different types of workers, and that's where I think their products their products better now than I think it's been in years and years. I think they've got a real good mix. They've got great wrestlers, they've got great storytellers, and they've got every sort of shape and size on both sides of the roster, male and female. I think that their representation of everyone is fantastic, and that's why I think their product is going from strength to strength, basically.
Yeah. Oh no, definitely. But well, talking of like the bigger companies, like I sort of said before I hit record, looking through stuff. I did a little collage earlier, put it on Twitter of just like my guest tonight has shared the ring with all these guys. Dude, you had like Keith Lee in there, Jeff Jarrett, Billy Gunn, X-Pac, Cody Rhodes, Nick Aldis, Doug Williams. There's obviously more that I haven't mentioned.
Yeah.
Dude, that's just that in itself. I mean, you said before you're not. I don't know who would say that, but yeah, you're not a name. But dude, you wrestled all these people. Promotions have put you up against these guys because they trust you. And represent the UK when these guys come over.
I mean, I was lucky enough, like I wrestled Nick for the NWA World Title and stuff like that, and that was something that Steve Fludder from PCW said, look, you're the guy to go in there. You're the guy to, when the pictures come out, that's the world heavyweight title match and stuff like that. And it's the same when I've worked guys, Rhino, Bobby Lashley, Chris Masters, all these guys. It's kind of showing that independent wrestling isn't just, the WWE superstars are this big and everyone else is this big or wrestles this style. You can see independent wrestlers that work a different style and can match up body for body, move for move with the guys that you see on TV. Even the biggest heavyweights, Bobby Lashley, Nick, they're massive human beings, but I'm there, same size, same style and stuff, and go blow for blow with them basically.
That's it. So I mean, that must have just been a huge. It's just a massive pat on the back. It must be like a massive confidence boost. Like I said, that you're being entrusted to represent, against these guys.
Absolutely, you always take it seriously whether you're wrestling someone's having their first match or a guy that's wrestled 10,000 times on TV and stuff like that. But when someone trusts you to normally not carry a show but be the marquee match on the show or one of the marquee match on the show, it's always a big honor. And I've just been grateful, that promoters have seen something in me that they, when Cody was on the Indies, I got to work Cody. When other, Lashley was on the Indies, and all these type of people I've been lucky enough in most cases to get the call, and I feel that I've acquitted myself well and acquitted British wrestling well against them.
Oh, definitely. I've had the pleasure of seeing, some of the matches. Got to ask Cody Rhodes, what was that like? Obviously, the dude comes from a massive wrestling family.
Yeah.
Was he chilled? Did you?
Really, really nice guy backstage, and really helpful for all the guys and girls on the show. Obviously, this was sort of New Japan Bullet Club, Cody. So he was at the sort of top of before AEW. He was at the top of New Japan and everything like that, and he was really helpful. And and it wasn't like, come in, we're just going to do the Cody Rhodes, everything you've seen on TV. It was a match where we went back and forth. I think we wrestled about 23 minutes and stuff like that. So he didn't come in and just go through the highlight reel and stuff like that. He was interested in, and I think he'd say this, for every match he had on the Indies and stuff like that, he was there to see what the talent was like. People put their working boots on and go from there, basically.
That's it. Also noticed early in the career, the Thrillers, you and a young Mark Haskins teaming up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so the Thrillers was pretty successful faction. You had Joel Redman, who went off to NXT, original sort of NXT. You obviously had Mark, who's wrestled all over the world and stuff, TNA and stuff like that. Myself, I mean, I feel like the black sheep because even Ricky Hype's gone on to win The Apprentice. So they've all been super successful, and maybe I didn't do as well as them, but I feel that the world of sport, it was given an unfair sort of shake of the stick, really. And but no, it's all good guys. We really sort of grew and matured as a unit, really.
I was going to mention that at some point. I wanted to sort of pick your brain about the world of sport. Obviously, you was tag team champion with Kip Sabian.
Yep.
How did you find? Because obviously, there was a massive hype. The world of sport's coming back after X amount of years. They had JR on commentary. It was ITV invested in it. It just it didn't click. I've had other people on, and they sort of said, it was the best about with the editing. It was just something just didn't work. But it had so much potential.
If you could get the raw footage from those TV tapings and either re-edit it or just play it as was, I honestly feel that the perception of it would be so different, because I know from the guys and girls that were in that locker room, we poured our heart and soul. We absolutely killed ourselves in those 3 days of tapings to make it the best wrestling that we could. And I feel that the edit just, wrestling's about, the way that the guy edited it. He'd never seen wrestling in his life. He just thought wrestling was all about the moves. And a lot of the, I'll take me and Kip and our team and how it worked. Obviously, you got the mouthy little guy, and then like the big older, harder brother that comes in and sort of sorts out all the trouble. So that was the story of how most of our matches went. And there was lots of times where, and I'll talk from my own personal perspective, because there was lots of stuff where I'm the biggest guy in the ring. I'm stalking someone. I'm just about to hit him with a clothesline or a body slam or whatever I was going to do. And that was all cut out. And all you saw was literally like move. And everyone knows that it's, as much as the moves need to be impressive and look impactful, it's the storytelling, it's the drama between the moves, the dynamics of the team, the dynamics of the match and everything like that. And that was just totally lost. And then, we did well, on the live tour, did really, really well. We sold out 5 of the 6 venues and oversold Blackpool and all, I'd seen fans sort of 2, 3, 4, 5 years after all of that. And they were saying how much they loved it and how much they wish, even if it had just carried on as like a touring company. I heard some stuff that potentially there was an offer from Dave, and I don't know how much truth or whatever's in this, that the guys that owned the World of Sport brand only wanted to be on ITV, and they wanted 100 grand an episode, but Dave only were offering 40, but wanted to do like 4 series or something. So you do like 10 episodes, then that would advertise the tour. That would take the next 10 weeks, and then in the middle of that tour we'd film another 10 episodes, and it would just be a rolling process like that, which I think, we'd have had if it had gone to Dave and that had been the process, we could have built up a really big fan base, because Dave was available to everyone at the time. If you had cable, no one has just an aerial these days. You'd have cable, you'd have Dave, or whatever, Freeview. So it could have been something really, really good. I don't, that was one of the stories that we heard afterwards. Whether there's truth in it or not, I don't know. But I think that if it was given that chance and given a longer run, 4 lots of 10 episodes with a tour in between, the whole situation potentially with UK wrestling might have been very, very different today, basically.
That would have been huge. As you sort of said, because you don't have somebody messing about with the edits on the live shows, the fans can turn up, watch the show, and just appreciate just like 2 or 3 hours of just good wrestling kind of thing.
And that's what it was. And you look at that roster and you look at the guys and girls where they've gone on to, most of them are full-time now, wrestling in one of the major 3 companies in the world now. And that just shows, what the caliber of that roster was, and stuff like that. So I think that the talent was there. I felt that the product and the rosters looked different and to what the NXT roster and the way that their sort of shows were produced and run. So I think you could have had 2 very, very different products that could have drawn different audiences and done very, very well for everyone involved.
No, definitely funny, and it would have given you guys that kind of job security as well. You would have had style freedom to do all the bookings, but you would have had that, that regular
work. You'd have had, similar, not saying it was going to be WCW, WWF type of stuff, but my contract's coming to the end. Potentially NXT think, we could bring them over to us, and, and it makes, job security for the boys and girls even better, and potential to earn more and do the thing that you love and be financially secure doing it. I feel it could have happened, but from the top, it was just mismanaged, or they were poorly informed, or whatever the case may be. But it just didn't ever come to fruition after that first series.
Like I said, if the simple concept of, if they don't grasp the storytelling element, it's never going to work. Because, like you said, the movies are important, but any wrestling fan will tell you, moments matter more than spots.
I mean, and you take the Bloodline, that's 3 years in the making, and apart from the chair shots and the turns and stuff like that, not that the matches don't matter, because they matter as part of the whole story, but none of those guys were doing triple somersaults to the outside. They were wrestling and doing great jobs wrestling, but it's the story and the Sammy stuff, and then the turns of Jimmy and Jay and back and forth and blah blah blah. That's the bits that really capture people in.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. I've always sort of said there's certain matches that I'll in my head, I'll give like 5 stars to, and I'll watch 10 times. Then there's other matches that I'll give 5 stars to, but only watch once because it's a 5-star match in that moment.
Yeah, well,
because
it built up to it, the storyline and everything like that, and I totally get you.
Yeah, that's it. So obviously, World of Sport. Again, looking through, the long list of people. I noticed you had kind of I think I saw 3. There might have been more, but you kind of had like a series of 3 matches against Al Snow. And that's obviously a name that jumps out at me because obviously.
So those were my real learning experiences, because I'll hold my hand up. The first match of those was pretty poor. In fact, very, very poor, because I was put in a position because of the way I looked, and Al works a very old school style where he doesn't like to plan, and he'll just, like, we might do this, we might do that, and I'm sat there like, oh, this isn't how I was taught, this isn't how I would work, and the first match was crap. There's no getting away from that. But Al sat me down, gave me basically a 3-hour seminar for 3.5 hours after the match, and I'd like to think that the second and third times that we worked, and there was improvements, but they were the matches that really made me realise, okay, I thought I was good because I was doing well, and a lot of people were positive and high on me, but when it came to actually wrestling a real wrestler, it kind of got came a bit unstuck. But I think that you need moments like that. If everything's plain sailing, you never get tested. You never know how good you are and how good your resolve is. When everyone on the forums was ripping me apart and stuff like that, it could have been easy. Right, pack up my boots. This ain't worth the time or the effort. But personality that I am, I went away and I worked and I got better and I got better. And if I wrestle now, it'd be a totally different story.
Nice. And that's awesome, because that is, like I said, that just shows the character. Like you said, you're never going to improve if people are just singing your praises. If people are telling you everything's fine, you're not going to have that desire to be. You're not going to push yourself because you're like, oh, I don't need to. Everything's good. And then somebody actually steps up and says, right, hang on a minute, no, X, Y, this, and this. Suddenly you're like, oh crap, okay, I can work on that.
And that's it, because I came from a sporting background, I'd be at training sessions and I think I'll be doing stuff wrong. My coach going, no, this is wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. And that's how you learn and that's how you improve. I think, unfortunately, sometimes people don't want to hear and it's not negative comments, it's constructive criticism. It shouldn't just be, this was crap. Like, if people ask me for feedback, I'll be like, this wasn't good, but here's the reason that it wasn't good, in my opinion, and here's what you can do, in my opinion, to improve that. Now, what they do or don't do with that opinion is entirely up to them. But I always take the point that if they've come to me and said, yes, then can you review this match? Can you watch this match? Can you feedback? Can you help me out here? They obviously value my opinion. So if I'm saying, right, I don't believe this worked very well because of X and Y, and you need to do A, B, C to improve it, that's what I want to see. At least one of the A, B, or C next time when I see you wrestle. I'm not expecting, if I give you 10 pieces of feedback for you, I'll see you in 2 weeks' time and you've nailed all 10 bits of that feedback. But if you've got one of them going, working on better, and then I can say, right, you're starting to get that. How about this one or this one or this one? And that's how people, unless you're some kind of freak of nature that can absorb all the information and just put it straight back out. And there's people I've met that are like that. Don't get me wrong, Charlie Sterling, Justin Sizem, they're like freaks of natures when it comes to doing this job. You just tell them once and they can do it. Most people need time and repetition.
I say it's a marathon for most people. You kind of pick it up as you're going along. Repetition, like I say, repetition. Justin Sizem, that's obviously a name. Ended World of Sport as champ. Seemed to be, I expected to see him everywhere. I thought obviously he went down a different path. But yeah, that dude was so good. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I still see Justin occasionally. There's a couple of projects that we work on together that he actually got me the positions for. He's moved very much into being a stunt performer. He was never and he'll be the first person to say this, he was never a massive wrestling fan before he started. It was just something that he could do incredibly well from a physical point of view. I mean, he's one of the people you literally, like I said, try this, Justin, and he could do it first time. So from a physical attributes of wrestling, the guy can do basically anything. So he's just a freak athlete. He was a freak athlete when it comes to athletics and American football and stuff like that. And he's a freak athlete in the world of, being a stuntman now, basically. So, he can, and he's done stuff. He's done some really cool stuff. He was an actor on the Marvel Live tour where he was playing Hawkeye and repelling him from the ceiling and doing all mad stuff like that. Because he was a hammer thrower. So he went in the latest Matilda film. He was the stunt double for Emma Thompson's character. So he's hammer throwing this dummy and stuff like that. But he's gone on to do loads and loads of stuff. But yeah, Justin's incredible talent, incredible athlete.
Yeah, and also just a very nice human being as well. I've had a few interactions with him, and yeah, the dude's awesome.
Yeah, good ones, definitely.
So yeah, like I said, just learning obviously, the Al Snow thing. I can't think of many more people that it would be cooler to learn from, especially given like he's where he is now, in OVW. The guys, you've learned from one of the best there. Any feedback you could get, you took it on board.
And that's what I've always tried to do, whether there's been, veterans that have been there and done that. I remember being on one show, it was me versus Tom Latimer in singles, and Scott Hall was appearing on the show, and I was the only person to go up and ask Scott Hall to watch the match and give me feedback. This is the guy that's probably regarded as having one of the best brains of the last 30 years. And I think that sometimes people, either they're nervous, they don't want to ask him, they don't want to bother him, but the guy, loved the business and, and he just wanted to help people. And, you ask him, Scott, can you feedback on this match? He sat there, watched it. And I think that you just got to do that as many times as you can. The amount of times I've been in the locker room with Doug Williams and, me, and I remember on one show it was me versus Eddie Ryan, probably the two next most experienced guys, and we were asking Doug, can you watch our match, you feedback? And other guys just didn't bother. I'm just like, how are you going to get better when there's a guy that's been to all the places that you want to wrestle, done all the things that you want to do, and you're not going to ask him, Doug, what did you think of this? Or can you give me any feedback? Can you give me any help? It just blows my mind. It's just crazy that people don't take more advantage of having someone like that there.
Totally agree. I couldn't figure out why you wouldn't. I mean, unless it's just a fear factor, unless they kind of feel embarrassed to ask. But it's like, no, these guys would have asked somebody else 10, 20 years ago. You're only doing what they did, when they were starting out. So why would you not do it? So you mentioned Scott Hall. Cody Hall was another name that jumped out at me when I was looking through the list of matches. So obviously you mentioned Tom Latimer. That would be Bram.
Yep.
So obviously somebody else that went on to do lots of very cool stuff. But Cody Hall, was that the match that you got Scott to look at? Or
me versus Bram, the match and then I was on another show where Scott Hall was managing we did an 8-man tag and Scott was managing the other team and stuff like that. So, I've had a couple of interactions with Scott, and getting to wrestle Cody was something that was really quite cool. Wrestled a couple of times on a couple of shows in the Southwest and stuff like that. And he's a cool guy. And he's a big unit. He's a lot bigger than me. Like he's like 6'6", 6'7". So it's good when I get to wrestle guys physically bigger than myself, because it changes a bit of the dynamic of the match and stuff like that, which is always something I enjoy. It's not something that comes around too often, but really cool guy. Really enjoyed working him.
Nice. Quick sidebar question. Scott Hall, one of the best punchers in the business.
Yeah. He's to me, he's got one. Him and a few other people have got a good. Without blowing my own trumpet, I put my right hand up there against most people. So but Scott's had a great right hand. Yeah,
definitely. I think it's one of those things. That's as a wrestling fan, I'm always, I can be impressed by this move or that move. If I see somebody throw a beautiful punch, I'm just like, that's just next level.
Yeah, and I think it's sometimes the strikes are what take the general public's out at the moment, because if they know that something's whiffed or something looks like absolute crap, that's going to take them. I'm not saying people should go around throwing legit punches and stiffing people, but work on your strikes. And if you've only got 2 you can throw well, or 1 you can throw well, only throw that. Don't throw things you can't do well, basically.
Definitely. Obviously coming up, Obviously, I had the pleasure of chatting to Shotty recently. You've got the Gauntlet of Gods coming up next month at Soft Pro. After speaking to Shotty, he sort of seems to be of the opinion that your manager in Soft Pro just keeps getting you into shit. He's just keeps dropping you in stuff, mate.
And I can't. He's trying his best for me as a client, shall we say? And if you look at ways that I've been eliminated in multi-person matches in the last 2 years, it's people have had to gang up on me. So this is my chance to sort of show why I am the alpha male of Soft Pro and start moving on to bigger and better things and start putting my name in the hat for championships and stuff like that. So it's all part of the plan, shall we say? And come the 18th of February, we'll see who steps up to the mark and who wants to get it on with the alpha male, basically.
That's good, man. It's going to be a very, very good show. Obviously, I say, talking Shotty, Soft Pro's a promotion that just seems to have hit the ground running over the last 12 months. Obviously, you're there. After working Manchester, I think Manchester's been kind of missing. It's had a few promotions over the years. It's always been one of those cities that's had more. I associate with having more than one promotion. I remember like HXC back in the day. Obviously, you got Future Shock there.
Yeah.
What's the vibe like at Soft Pro? Are you looking forward to the Gauntlet?
Pro shows have been a bit of a breath of fresh air. I feel. I think that they came in and they had a plan of what they wanted to do. They've covered all bases. They've got and I'll just talk from a wrestler's perspective. First of all, they've got custom music, custom entrance videos. They've got the production. They've got the video screens. They've got a good ring to work in. They've got venues that have got good seating situations and stuff like that. And then they've got an unusual situation where there's 5 or 6 guys and girls that are running it, but I think they all bring something different to the table, and it means that they've all got their own sort of styles and favorites and stuff like that. So they all kind of bring a very sort of eclectic. They put together an eclectic roster. So I think that it's not your normal, because that's what I see a lot of times. Certain people get hot, or certain shows get good reviews, or matches get good reviews, and then they tend to do a bit of a tour of some promotions, which is great for the guys involved, but it means the fans are almost seeing not the same match over and over, but the same matchups and stuff like that. And I would say that Soft Pro has put on a lot of first time or rarely seen combinations and matchups and stuff like that, which is something I think is giving them a unique selling point. And I think that's because they're drawing not just from one person's view on it, although Shotty tends to steer the ship. They've got all this other input, which I think is really, really good.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. I mean, I've watched a few of the matches, on YouTube, and it's a lot of the matches that I've seen on there have been first time matches for me. I've never seen these guys together or working together. And obviously, I love the idea of the Gauntlet of Gods. I just love the fact that you're just going to be just steamrolling through however many people.
That's what I do. That's what I do best, definitely.
That's it, man. Play to the strengths. It just makes you look like an absolute unit. And to the fans, you're just this bigger than life character.
And that's the whole thing, and that's what wrestling's always been about. And like we spoke about earlier, like I grew up on these larger than life characters, and sometimes I think that people go for the really intricate characters when it's easier for them to get hold of. Well, he's a big bully, and he's a this, and he's a that, and he's a sportsman, and he's a and he's a computer game person or whatever. It's easy and then once they've got the grasp of the bigger character, then that you can then get into the minutiae. I see a lot of guys coming through, and they've got these really unique, but what I feel are quite niche characters, and like me as a consumer, and I've got kids of my own. I've got older stepkids that were fans, still fans of wrestling, but were massive WWE fans. So I know what it's like to be a parent of 8, 10, 13, 15-year-olds that enjoy the product. But I've also got a 5-year-old now, and I think that not everyone's working to family audiences, but again, like we discussed earlier, that's where the money is, and I think you've got to be broad enough in your character, or broad enough in how you present your character, so everyone gets it, and then you can whittle things down to the minutiae once they've started seeing you a couple of times. I think sometimes what I'm seeing from newer guys is they're trying to think as if they've got 15 vignettes and 10 minutes of interview time on every show and stuff like that to get these really intricate characters across, whereas it needs to be a bit more broad, and then once you've got the audience, then you can narrow things down and be more specific.
it's got to be snappy. You've got to presume, at least 50% of the audience has never been there before. They don't know who you are.
Imagine that the whole audience, 100 people, 200 people, 1,000 people, have never ever seen you before, and within 10 seconds of you walking through that curtain, you've got over your character, who you are, what your intentions are, and stuff like that. And then once they've, people have seen that 3, 4, 5, 10 times, then it's easier for them. But there's always going to be people that have never seen you before. There's always going to be people that, this is their first wrestling show, and I'm the first person out through the crowd. How do we interact with this person? And I think that you've got to be very, very, very broad in your appeal, or your character's got to be broad enough that everyone can get it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally. Like you said, yeah, you can be, you could be the smartest fan. You could have seen like 100 of your matches, and you start picking up on the little touches, the fine details here and there. But if I'm watching your match for the first time, it's still something that you just pull me in straight away, and it's like, okay, I get what this guy is, whether it's a good guy or a bad guy. I know within 10 or 20 seconds whether I want to boo him or cheer him.
Exactly, and that's that's all part and parcel of being a good professional. Is the hardcore fans will know you. They'll see the little intricacies. They'll see the way that you get in the ring, or the way that you even stuff like you hand your robe off to your manager and stuff like that. But the casual fans who've never seen him before, they'll be like, this guy's an arsehole because he thinks he's bigger than everyone, better than everyone, yada yada yada.
That's it. I mean, I was talking to I had the pleasure of speaking to Mark Ashley yesterday. He does obviously a lot of filming and stuff, and he pointed out the keyness of a good entrance.
Yeah.
Within that 10, 20 seconds of your entrance, of you stepping through those curtains, the fans know.
And that's it. And I stepped through, particularly at Soft Progress, we've got the custom music videos, custom entry videos, and I've been lucky enough that we got the entrance gear and stuff like that. And the crowd know as soon as I step through, right, what I'm looking for, what I'm doing. And, the entrance is very deliberate. It's the same each time and everything like that, basically. So you try and replicate and do the same things over and over.
That's it. But like I say, it just gets the point over as to what they can expect from you. And then it gives you that freedom to just, do what you want to do, kind of thing. So, but you mentioned PCW earlier. It's a promotion that I haven't been to for a few years, but I was a diehard PCW fan back in, a few years ago. Every month I'd be in Preston. Dude, that place was just, for me, it was like the highlight of British wrestling.
Yeah, when you would say the Preston shows were the biggest shows in British wrestling, they're the best of British wrestlers there. They had the best, they had all, anyone, you name anyone that was on the independent circuit that wasn't signed to a major company, they had them there. And I think that it was, it was really there was a time, like I said, that was the product in British wrestling. I think that, unfortunately, WCPW probably came along and they probably had deeper pockets than Steve Fludder had, and that led to a shift there. And Steve kind of pivoted and changed his business plan and stuff like that, because it wasn't, if WCPW are putting on a show with 10 names and you can only afford to have 3 names, well, people are going to pay to go and see the 10-name show, which is in just up the road, Manchester or wherever. So pivot, and I think Steve, it's been 18 months since I've been on a show, but he's still running successful shows and doing good business, but in a different way now.
Yeah. Oh no, definitely. I know they are still a force. Still a very good promotion in the UK. It wasn't like to besmirch them. It was I just remember they were. I just remember it was must see every month.
I think that a lot of promotions have been through peaks and troughs. We've seen it with lots of different promotions, particularly in the last sort of 5 or 6 years or so. With promotions get hot, they do well, and then there's a sort of crest of a wave, and then the wave kind of breaks and stuff, and then you've got to look to rebuild and like I say, pivot and slightly change your strategy. And I think that companies have done that, and the companies that have carried on have done well, and the companies that haven't, they're sort of folded and gone by the wayside.
That's it. But I mean, it's just British wrestling as a whole at the minute. I think, you mentioned, back in 2005, getting into it. Obviously, you were quite lucky to have a school close-ish by. But back in the day, if that one wasn't there, I'm guessing, the next one would have been like an hour, 2 hours away.
Yeah, and that's the thing, that nowadays there are many more reputable schools with good trainers and stuff like that. Because I think when I started, it was, America was this big dream, Japan was this big dream. Like 2 guys every 10 years got to go to Japan and stuff like that. And the world's got a lot smaller in for everyone, just in travel, but also in wrestling, wrestling circumstances and stuff as well. So I think that there are people that have had a lot more experience. There are people that have been able to go out and train underneath the best trainers and then bring that back and school. There are more schools. I think that has also led that there are, unfortunately, a lot of schools and promotions that aren't very good, and you've still got that. And I think that because wrestling's on a bit of a high, and WWE and AEW are running stuff here, I'd be worried that sometimes, if and I know what it's like being a family, you go and spend 60 quid to take your kids to a wrestling show, and the wrestling isn't very good, but you don't know, you just see a poster of wrestling on. You could turn up to a show that's really good for 60 quid, or a show that's absolute crap for 60 quid. But if you go to that absolute crap one, that family's be like, I'd rather spend 500 quid and take the kids to the O2 and watch the WWE or AEW than. But if they turn up to a good show, they could turn up every 2 months for the next 5 years and love British wrestling. And I think that's always been the case. I just think there's more good shows. Unfortunately, I would say there's as many bad shows as well.
Yeah, that's the problem. I think it's luck of the draw sometimes. Like I said, thankfully I'm based in Leeds. I'm very lucky to have 4 or 5 good promotions around the area. But I know, not everybody's as lucky, and sometimes you can go to a show and it's a double-edged sword. If you put that one family off, they're never going to go to another show, regardless of how good it is. They're not taking that chance.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
They tell people.
You could be in a town and there could be 2 promotions running. They choose the crap one and never go again. And that one that's putting on really good shows and pushing the business forward and stuff just doesn't get that family and doesn't potentially get, like I said, lifelong fans, 5-year-long fans. And that's still, it's something that was bad when I came in. It's still bad now, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's playing the numbers, isn't it? Like I said, the amount of shows could have times by 10. But it's not just the good shows that have multiplied; it's the bad shows that have multiplied.
Yeah.
But I do think that my original point, I was a long-winded way of getting there, is I think it's a lot easier to get into it now, though, in the sense of I've said it before, I don't think you're ever more than 30 minutes away from a good school.
No, and I think that's a good thing. I think that it's something that the door is definitely open, and when you put the opportunity out there for more people, you're going to get more talent through. I just think that, and this is just my personal opinion, that I think a lot of people have seen people be very successful, and they think that's going to happen to everyone. And I think that people have to realise that sometimes you're an instant superstar, and sometimes it's a grind, and you have to keep working and keep working and keep working. And we're not all Justin Size, and we're not all Charlie Sterling. Sometimes you're a guy like CJ Rawlins, who's been grafting away for like 8 years, I believe, and he's now getting the recognition of working and training and getting better and working shows and again improving his physique and improving his look. And now he's a guy, I think he's got all the potential in the world, and he's just sort of just started to get out there and work his way up to the next level of shows and the next level of shows. So I think some people are just expected to be like, I've been to wrestling school, done my 6 months, and now I'm going to be on Progress, Rev Pro, or whatever it is and stuff.
No, that's it. I mean, like I said, there's always the exception, but for the most part, it's a long road. You've got to put the graft in. I've referenced this a few times now, but I think the best way to look at it is, or a way that somebody else looked at it and explained it to me, is once you start training, once you start in the wrestling business, you're on the ladder.
Yeah.
Right. Doesn't matter where you are. You can aspire to be like a Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson or Randy Orton or Carter, Ospreay. Doesn't matter where you are on the ladder. You're on the ladder. It's the same ladder as all those guys. Doesn't matter where you are. You're on the same ladder. If you think about it that way.
Absolutely, and I think that everyone's got the opportunity to go up that ladder, and everyone's got the opportunity to come back down and stuff as well. But if you keep working, you might only go a tiny bit at a time, but you'll see the improvements, and the bigger opportunities will come, definitely.
That's it. I mean, but obviously, you know, the wealth of the talent in Britain at the minute, it's got to be good because it means that you're not facing the same guys over and over and over. It keeps it fresh for you as well, kind of thing, for everybody.
Fresh for the wrestlers, fresh for the fans as well. And I think there's you know, there is a massive pool of talent out there, and I think that there's lots of matchups that haven't been booked that could tear the house down in certain promotions and stuff like that. And I think that there's still really exciting opportunities. Like, it's not just, you know, after being in the business for 18 years, I'm not just looking on, it's me and the same guy again, which is no problem. We'll still put a good match on for the fans, but you know, it's like, oh, I'm wrestling this guy and I've not wrestled him before, and I want to have a really good match with this person, and this is a totally new crowd for us both. And
that's it.
Yeah.
Because I think, well, like 10 or so years ago, there seemed to be like a core 10, 15 guys, and they fought each other in alternative patterns all across the country, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But now, you know, it kind of feels like more territorial again. You've got certain guys that you can work an unlimited amount of matches against a wealth of talent just in Lancashire or just in Yorkshire, kind of thing.
Because there's such a good number of talent and stuff like that. You're not having the same guys travelling from, you know, all the way up to Scotland, all the way down to Kent, all the way across here. You've got enough talent. You know, in the Southwest, there's 6 or 7 good promotions, and yeah, a lot of their guys are similar because they don't need to be spending, you know, hundreds of pounds bringing people in because they've got enough talent nearby. And yes, and then when that talent or a couple of those talents break out and go and work in a different area, it's something new and exciting in those areas, definitely.
That's it. So, well, we mentioned titles. I love the idea of titles. I love, you know, I love when I'm speaking to people who don't get wrestling or don't know wrestling, and you mention a title, and they're just kind of very dismissive of it. But to me, that's just like it's the highest compliment, you know, a promotion can give you. It's recognition of years of hard work, or, you know, the graft you've put in. That's what the title means. You know, they're trusting you with this on, you know, to carry the promotion.
Yeah, similar to what we talked about with those sort of marquee matches from earlier. You know, it's that the promoter, you know, you've obviously resonated with the fans in whatever way, whether you loved or hated or whatever, that you get a good enough response and you put on a good enough quality of match that they feel, right, this person here deserves to be a focal point or one of the focal points of my shows and stuff going forward. So I've been lucky enough that I've obviously, you know, resonated with the audiences, and whatever reaction I'm supposed to be getting, I'm getting that reaction as best as possible out of the crowd and stuff.
15 titles you've held that I know of, that I've seen.
Probably a few more, but yeah, I've held a good few. Yeah, definitely.
Dude, that's just. But yeah, I mean, does it still have the same impact now that it, you know, that very first one that you got? Does it still, you know, with a tear in my eye, you still get that?
I just take it as any time a promotion says yes, and we want you to win this title or this tournament or this thing, I just take it as a, you know, a pat on the back. You know, I won a title for the second time this past weekend. I became the Forever Rivals, you know, Conquest champion, their main champion. You know, I was the inaugural holder, lost it in dubious circumstances to Gianni Valletta, and then I won it back again. So, you know, it just shows that promotion's got faith in you, and they see the value of having you on their shows in a prominent position. You know, again, down at Exposure Wrestling, on their digital champion at the moment. So, you know, even in I think this is year 19, I'm still being entrusted to push forward and lead companies and you know, be part of the bigger process and stuff like that.
That's it. I mean, that all ties back to me. That's why I was generally, when you sort of said earlier about, you know, not being a name, like, dude, you know, you are a name in the British wrestling scene. So, I mean, I think it's self-explanatory. You know, you wouldn't have had this many titles. You wouldn't have been in the ring with who you'd been in with if you wasn't, kind of thing. So, but it's nice to be humble.
Yeah, no, and I just take it that, you know, I've done a good job, and, you know, people appreciate that, whether it's the fans or whether it's the promoters, and, you know, I just keep turning up. And I've always, you know, the name on the bill says professional wrestling. I've always tried to be professional. I've always turned up, right, who am I wrestling? What's this? What's that? Who's the referee? Who's this? Who's that? You know, I've always tried to be professional. I always carry myself in a professional manner because, you know, like me, dislike me, whatever. I think that if people ask, the question, they'd say Iestyn's a good guy and he's a good professional wrestler, because that's what I've always turned up to do. Turned up and been professional and done the job the best that I can do it.
And that's all you can do. Nobody can ask any more of you than that. That's the peak of being a professional. Like I said, just turn up, do as requested, put on a good show, send the fans home happy, and then you get booked again.
And that would be my advice to anyone that's starting or new in this business. The job title says professional wrestler, therefore be a professional wrestler. Arrive on time, or arrive, make every effort to arrive on time. Look as professional as you can. Good gear, clean gear. Right, the promoter says he needs you to do X, Y, and Z. You do X, Y, and Z. You do it to the best of your ability, and then you say thanks, and you head home. You do it the next time. Exactly.
Dude. Right, an obvious question. The list. I keep seeing people putting. Obviously, you've got name after name after name. Have you got a list of names that you haven't been in the ring with yet that you want to be? Anybody jump out at you that you think I could have an absolute banging match with them?
So it was a tough one, because I think I could have a good match with anyone, and that might sound really arrogant, but I think that, even though I'm a bigger guy, I'm still for nearly 41, I'm still pretty agile. I can still move around well in the ring, so I can keep up with guys that are, smaller than me and stuff like that. I'm at this point in my career, I just want to wrestle. I'll wrestle anyone. I'll wrestle whoever's put up against me and stuff like that. I'd love to. I mean, I've wrestled Will loads of times when Will Ospreay, when he was young, and in tag matches and stuff like that. Never got the chance to wrestle him in singles. I think that, obviously I know Will quite well. I've worked with him as a coach, trying to get him from junior heavyweight to a heavyweight and stuff like that. I honestly believe at the moment he's one of the best free wrestlers in the world. There's an argument that could be had that he's the best wrestler in the world. So I'd love to work him, one-on-one, whether I get the opportunity to. That's a different story, but that's just the nature of the business. There's loads of guys in WWE that I think I could have a great matchup with. There's loads of guys on the independent scene. Like I said, if you book them, I'll work them. That's my thing. I'll work a guy in his second ever match and try and have a great match as best as he can have or she can have. And then the same with anyone, really.
Definitely. And just
you name some people you think I'd go well with. That's
See, I'm thinking of, like, you've got your old school. I'd love, regardless of how many times you've done it, I'd love to see you in Mastiff Square Off again, kind of thing. Yeah. Those kind of matches never get old. You and Shreddy, I think, would just be like freaking the unstoppable force meeting the unmovable.
Scratch the surface of, in the singles, what we could definitely do with more time and maybe like a main event sort of setup and stuff like that. So yeah, that would be definitely something I'd be interested in doing. But
then you've got the flip side as well, like you sort of said, wrestling is about stories. You don't get a story older than David versus Goliath.
Yeah.
You got the speed against the strength. So, there's guys like you against Robbie X or you against Scotty Rourke or something like that would just pique my interest.
I've never, to my knowledge, I don't believe I've been on a show with Scotty, but I hear lots and lots of good things about him. I've worked Robbie tag matches. I think me and Robbie could tear the house down. He's one of the, if not the smoothest wrestler of the last 5 years. The guy's, and he's quicker than lightning. And I feel that the stuff that we have done together has gone really well. And I think that if you put us in a singles match, I think we'd tear the house down, basically.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. And to quote the World of Sport commentator, I believe he's quicker than a hiccup.
Yeah, he certainly is.
Yeah. But obviously, you know Robbie from the World of Sport days as well. You was both there. But yeah, it's just matches like that. Like I said, it's just whether it's two big guys or, like I said, I love the David and Goliath matches kind of thing. I always love that. It's the unanswerable question. What's better, speed or strength? You're going to say strength.
Yeah, like I said, wrestling's all about telling stories, and I think whether it's big man, little man, big man, whatever the story is, I think that you can get an audience encapsulate. Is encapsulate the right word?
Encapsulate. Interested. We'll just say
interested. We'll keep their interest high. you know, as long as you're telling a good story and they can understand exactly what's going on and everything like that, definitely.
Yeah, that's it. I fully agree. And it's just, that's the thing. I think sometimes people try to overcomplicate it sometimes, but you know, at its purest form, wrestling is just good guy versus bad guy. Keep the story simple, and
exactly.
everybody will be.
Sometimes people get more obsessed. Oh, if I could do this cool move, I'll get a reaction. Well, if you can get as good a reaction from a headlock or a punch or a well placed clothesline, you know, you don't have to be killing each other to do it. Now, it's not that, you know, extreme moves, cool moves, they all have their place, absolutely. And, you know, and I've done and taken some crazy stuff in the time, but I think it's all about the build and it's all about the emotion that goes with it as well.
It is definitely. It's about being able to work the audience, and then you kind of got them right there, just for that moment, that one key bump or that one key move.
Yeah,
you know, gets the reaction. So, I mean, that's obviously, you know, you're all about working with Al Snow, calling the sort of the match in the ring, working, feeding off the audience, I would presume. You know,
that's something that now I could get in there. My opponent could already be in the ring. I've turned it to the venue, put my gear on, and I go out, and and that's something that I learned from working out, and then working lots and lots on the camps and shows with talents like James Mason, and just learning to listen, react to the audience, and this is where I sort of come up with my mantra. When you're putting a match together, you might have planned the best Sunday dinner, roast dinner that you could ever give, but if the crowd just want chocolate pudding and they're not reacting to roast dinner, just give them a chocolate pudding. Work out what that is and just give it to them, because you might give them Gordon Ramsay's best ever 5 Michelin stars roast dinner, but if they don't want roast dinner, they ain't gonna like it. So
that's it. You put it down in front of a vegetarian, he's just gonna look at it and be like, "No, mate, don't want it."
Exactly. But you got to think about, and that's where sometimes, you know, the best wrestlers are the guys that they can have this, that, and the other planned, and then when it doesn't work, they can just go, right, we're going to do this and go from there.
Switch it up. Right, this will be the last thing. I'll let you get gone soon, but you just mentioned the holiday camps. Obviously, you know, I said to you before, you know, I speak to people that have been in the business for 1 year, 10 years, 20 years. The holiday camps are something that comes up with a certain generation, you know, a certain level of experience. How did you find them? Everybody says they're a must do. You know, if you get the chance to do a holiday camps, do them.
To me, they're a must do, because you're working in front of an audience that they've come for the bingo at 1 o'clock, the wrestling at 3 o'clock, and the evening entertainment, the singer, the magician, the comedian at 7 o'clock. So they're not there. They're not wrestling fans. They're just there to be entertained. So if you can entertain, you know, on the biggest holiday camps, you might be entertaining 1,500, 3,000, 5,000 people. If you can entertain them, then you're a good professional wrestler, because they didn't have to come and watch that show. They didn't buy a ticket to come and watch that show. They weren't there to watch wrestling. They were there to be entertained. So yes, and people say it's hokey and it's a lot of clap along and stuff like that, but I think there is interaction with the audience that might be the volume turned up on that. But you still, again, there's still dads in that audience. They might have had a couple of beers. They'll be the first ones to be like, oh, that punch missed by a mile. You know, if you lose them, they'll be like, right, kids, if we go in the other bit, there's karaoke on over there, there's a swimming pool over there. You know, there's a million, you know, there's a million things to do, you know, at the same time that the wrestling was on. But if you're really good at your job and you can interact with those fans and you can keep those kids entertained, you can keep those adults entertained, then you're a good professional wrestler. And I think the camps gives you 1 opportunity, 2 opportunities, sometimes 3 opportunities a day to go out 1 or 2 times. So you could be wrestling 6 times a day for 6 days. That's, you know, that's
a lot of matches.
36 matches in 6 days. You're going to get a hell of a lot better in a short period of time, because that's more matches than some people have in 2 years, you know, working the indies and stuff like that. So it's those kind of experiences that I think are vital. And if you listen to 99% or 90% of the guys and girls that have gone on to places, a lot of them have been through the camp system, whether it be a week or 2 weeks or runs after runs after runs and weeks after weeks.
No, definitely. I mean, it's learning by repetition. And like I said, if you can keep the interest of somebody who's not really interested in what you're doing, then that speaks volumes about your ability. But it's a good way of working on things that you're not sure about. I suppose you've got that bit more freedom.
Different characters, different traits, different this, different that. You can put them out there, because you can be like, right, this week or this couple of days, I'm going to try X, Y, and Z. That goes down like a lead balloon. So you go, right, I'm going to try this, and this, and then you see whether it works and what works and what doesn't work, basically.
That's it. And Brian Danielson's bigging up the holiday camp scene as being a massive learning curve in his career.
When I did some driving for the NOAA tour, the original European navigation, I drove Brian Danielson to the airport and stuff like that. He was saying if Brian Dixon had paid him £100 a match, that would have been £200-300 a day, because obviously he was doing the camps and stuff like that. He'd have never left for WWE. He'd have never left to go to Japan. So that shows what he thinks of wrestling and what he thinks. If he was getting £100 a match, he'd have never left the camps.
It's crazy, isn't it? But I think it's just the learning curve. It's just boot camp for wrestling 101 by the sounds of it. And so if anybody's watching,
rep after rep after rep after rep, and that's how you get good. Same as going to training school and doing rep after rep of a drill. This is it in front of a live audience where it's sink or swim.
Definitely, dude. Just clocked the time. We've gone over the hour mark. I honestly can't thank you enough, for just taking the time to talk.
My pleasure.
If you want to plug your socials, where people can keep an eye on you, see what shows you're on, come and watch.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's all at Iestyn _Rees, IESTYN_RWS. Loads of shows coming up. I've got my diary fairly busy to the point where I want it for the first half of the year. Still looking to fill up the second half of the year. But yeah, and obviously we talked a little bit about my sort of coaching and stuff like that. If there's any wrestlers or members of the general public looking to improve their fitness, particularly, and I do tend to mention more wrestlers because that's where most of my clients are. Guys, being an athlete, whatever your shape or size, improving your health and your fitness is really, really important. It'll equal longevity in the ring, ability to be fitter and stronger in your matches, which makes you a better professional wrestler. Just drop me a message, even if it's like, yes, I don't know what hell you do or how you do it. I'll talk you through the stuff, and maybe it's something that you'll want to invest in yourself and doing. People always invest in new gear, music videos, etc., etc. Invest in your body as well, because it is the thing that you need to keep in the best shape possible.
Oh, that's it. You can buy new ring gear, you can't really buy a new body. So
no, exactly.
That makes sense. Obviously, I'll put all this on here as well. I'll put links in, so if people can get contact or find you.
Yeah, brilliant.
So as always, though, thank you for watching. Hit like, hit subscribe. Keep your eyes peeled. Got a busy few months coming up. But yeah, most importantly, thank you. As I said, it's been an absolute pleasure, and look forward to seeing you run the gauntlet next month.
That's it. Yeah, see who steps up to the plate. Let's go. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. Thank you for watching, and we'll speak to you soon. Goodbye.